Welcome to Global One Media's Stocks to Watch. I'm Michael Swido. Joining me today is Harry Chu. He's the president and CEO of Arctic Fox Lithium. They're a mining exploration company whose shares are traded in Frankfurt and in Toronto on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Now, as their company name implies, they're drilling for lithium, and that is a red-hot sector right now, thanks largely to the growth of electric vehicles. Harry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael.
I want to take a step back for a moment. Mining is a major driver of Canada's economy. It accounts for about 5% of Canada's GDP and nearly a quarter of its exports. Mining is expensive, though, and the Canadian government knows it, so it set up a number of tax schemes to encourage investment. One such program has to do with something called flow-through shares. Harry, I'm hoping you can give our viewers a quick primer. What exactly are flow-through shares, and how do they differ from common stock?
Yeah, good question. Very good question. We got involved in issuing some flow-through shares most recently. Flow-through shares is a means for investors to invest in a company, and whereby they would get 100% tax write-off against all their taxable income. So these are created as an incentive to invest in exploration, especially in Canada. And we find that's a great tool to kind of get investors involved and de-risk some of their capital, because their cost base becomes less than half of the highest marginal tax bracket.
That's fantastic. So all Canadians can benefit from that tax system, but the picture is even better if you live in Quebec. So Harry, how is that?
Well, the Quebec government introduced this thing called super flow-through. So super flow-through is a way to incentivize Quebec residents to invest within their province. And what it is allows the individual Quebec investor to get an additional 25% tax write-off against their income for that year as well. So on top of the 100%, they get a further 25% tax write-off, which for us, it bodes well for those that live in Quebec, because now if they're in the highest marginal tax bracket, let's say 50%, their cost base becomes somewhere around 25 to 30% of the initial cost of their stock. So they've then further de-risked their capital that they've invested into the company.
Well, super flow through, that's fantastic. It's enough to make me want to move to Quebec.
Yes.
That plus the beautiful natural surroundings. Let's get back to tax incentives, though. It's really interesting to learn about this. This incentives sound quite significant, but I venture to say that most investors don't know about them. Now, in addition to those flow-through shares, Canada also offers a mineral exploration tax. I think it's about 30% to help exploration companies raise equity funds. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, the Canadian government, and Quebec government are working in tandem to try and make Quebec what I would consider the next hub for lithium development worldwide. They want to become fully integrated from producing from exploration, development, and producing lithium hydroxide to actually producing the batteries itself for fueling everything from cars to homes to anything that requires lithium batteries. So companies like Volkswagen, Ford Motor Company are already in place. So the Canadian government, to kind of further along with that, they created this thing called the Critical Mineral Exploration Tax Credit. What that is an additional 30% federal tax credit that an investor would get afforded on top of, if they did a flow through 100%, and if they did a super flow through the extra 25%. So the 125% tax credit plus a 30% federal tax credit for a person living in Quebec is phenomenal. So it just bodes well, and it shows you that the Canadian government is working towards become what we call a net zero carbon country. And that's great for the world.
Yeah, most definitely. Sounds like it's great for the world as well as for investors.
Yes.
And as I mentioned, lithium, it's red hot right now. And Canada wants to carve out a bigger share of this marketplace, in part by offering these incentives. So we've talked about the flow-through shares and the exploration tax credit. What other forms of support are currently on tap?
The federal government is trying to do whatever they can to promote it. As I mentioned, if provinces like Quebec allow these special tax incentives. But on top of that, the federal government has, if you go into production, do things like give you government grants, tax deferrals. So these are things that, from a corporate standpoint, makes a lot of sense to go and explore and develop in those areas, and hopefully at some point in time, future point in time, go into production.
Fantastic. If we zoom in a bit and specifically look at your business, I understand you have 3 projects in the James Bay area of Quebec, more than 140 claims on 77 hectares of land. So I just want to kind of bring this all home for investors right now. Last word, what would you say to a Canadian, or more specifically to a Quebecois, who might be thinking about investing in Arctic Fox?
Well, I mean, again, we have this situation where you can invest in any juniors. Okay, so there are a lot of juniors out there, a lot of juniors in the James Bay area. James Bay, to me, is going to be the area for lithium worldwide. No question. China, South America, they've all put restrictions on exporting, so there's going to be a pinch in terms of where the next lithium grab will be. James Bay is the area. Specifically for us, we believe Arctic Fox, simply because we did a number of what we consider exploration and I'm going to say our own intel with respect to identifying the projects that we wanted to get involved in before we actually made any acquisition. So we acquired these 3 projects. On top of that, looking at data that we were made available to us from government information, as well as using what we call the magic formula, Google Earth, we were able to identify properties that had pegmatites on surface. And these are the properties that we've acquired, and these are properties we'll be exploring. We've just completed a LiDAR survey on all of our lands, which will be a tool used to get our ground crew on the ground. Hopefully, in the beginning of October, we'll have a team out there doing sampling, challenge sampling, rock and assay sampling. So it bodes well for us. I mean, we expect to get some good results or information in the forthcoming months.
All right, well, it sounds like things are really moving forward for you and your company. And just to reiterate, I think it's particularly interesting to learn about these considerable tax breaks that Quebecois and Canadian residents can gain by investing in the mining sector and in companies like yours. Harry, sounds like there's a lot of great progress going on at Arctic Fox. Really interesting to hear. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Michael.